I walked into my office and stopped. Again. Someone had been in there. A chair was out of place. My candy bowl was half empty. It was the third time that week. I tried to brush it off, but it kept happening. My office, my sanctuary was being invaded. At first, it was just a chair out of place. Then I found teachers venting in there. They said it was quieter than the lounge. Always crowded, they said. My pens, my tea, my things started disappearing. One day, I found a teacher eating soup at my desk. Another time, it was an assistant principal, sitting in my chair, the door shut, having a personal phone call. This wasn't just an office. This was a counseling space. Confidential student stuff was in there. I needed it to be private. So I sent an email, polite, direct, asking them to stay out unless we talked first. Some apologized, most ignored it. And it kept happening. Then came the last straw. I walked in early one morning, found Paraz doing a birthday thing in my office, sheet cake on my filing cabinet, frosting on the tray where I keep student paperwork. I froze, cleaned it up, documented it, talked to my principal. Enough was enough. Maintenance rekeyed my door. Now, I keep it locked when I'm not inside. People are annoyed. A teacher said, I'm making the building less collaborative. The assistant principal mentioned we all need to be flexible. My principal hasn't told me to unlock it, but asked if there was a less dramatic way. Maybe there was, but I tried the polite reminder, and they kept acting like my office only counted as private when it suited them. Was I wrong for locking the door? Did I take it too far? So there I was, caught in this whirlwind of office politics and personal boundaries. I mean, all I wanted was to keep my space secure for my students, and now I was the bad guy. It felt like I was fighting a losing battle. The very next day, I overheard a couple of teachers whispering in the hallway. They were talking about me, of course. Something about how I was taking things too seriously, and it's just an office. I resisted the urge to jump in and defend myself. Instead, I walked past with my head held high, trying not to let their words get to me. Later, during lunch, one of the newer teachers approached me. She hesitated before speaking, like she was trying to find the right words. Hey, I just wanted to say, I get it, she said. I mean, your office should be private. It's your workspace. Her support was unexpected, and honestly, it felt like a breath of fresh air. Finally, someone understood. But even with her backing me up, the tension in the building was palpable. It was like my locked door had become this symbol of division. People started giving me side eyes in the hall and huddling in small groups, casting glances my way. The whole thing was ridiculous, really. Then, a couple of days later, I found a note slipped under my door. It was handwritten, and when I picked it up, I felt a mix of curiosity and dread. The note read, "We miss having a place to go. Can we talk about this?" It wasn't signed, but I had a pretty good idea who it was from. I couldn't ignore it, so I decided to bring it up at the next staff meeting. I knew it was a gamble. I mean, the last thing I wanted was to make it seem like I was stirring the pot even more. But I figured if we were going to resolve this, we needed to talk it out. At the meeting, I took a deep breath and stood up. I know there's been some tension around my office being locked. I started trying to keep my voice steady. I just wanted to explain why it was necessary and see if we can find a solution that works for everyone. The room went quiet for a moment, and then, one by one, people started to speak up. Some were still annoyed, but others were more understanding than I expected. We talked about the need for private spaces and how important it was to respect boundaries, not just mine, but everyone's. By the end of the meeting, we'd come up with a compromise. The school would look into creating another private space that could be used by staff when they needed a break. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it felt like a step in the right direction. Walking back to my office afterward, I felt a sense of relief. Maybe things would get better. Maybe locking my door wasn't the end of the world after all. As I settled back into my office, the tension seemed to ease a little. The compromise we'd reached at the meeting was still fresh, and I hoped it would hold. I mean, they finally seemed to get that my office wasn't just a free-for-all. A few days later, I started noticing small changes. The snide comments in the hall were less frequent, and the side eyes weren't as sharp. It was like people had finally begun to realize that my locked door, that wasn't a personal affront, but a necessary boundary. To my surprise, the assistant principal, the same one who'd been in my chair with the door shut, approached me. She started with, "Hey, I've been thinking about what you said in the meeting." I nodded, curious about where this was going. "I guess I didn't consider how important your space is for your work," she admitted. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was close enough. We talked for a bit about how we could better communicate our needs as a staff, and it felt like we were finally on the same page. The school even found a small, unused classroom that they agreed to convert into a staff lounge. It wasn't much, but it was something. A place where they could have their soup and birthday cakes without intruding on my sanctuary. With this shift, I felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. My office, my little oasis of calm in a sea of middle school chaos, was back to being just that. I could focus on my students, knowing that their confidentiality and my peace of mind were secure. And as things slowly returned to normal, I started to relax. I even noticed that bowl of candy staying full a little longer. It seemed like people were respecting the boundaries now, even if it had taken a locked door to get there. But there's still a part of me that wonders. I mean, was it really the right move? Could I have handled it differently? Or did locking my door truly change how they saw me? So, with everything settling down, I was finally able to breathe easy, at least for a little while. It felt like the storm had passed and people were coming around. My office was mine again, a quiet place where I could meet with students without worrying about who might be in there next. But one afternoon, as I was tidying up after a particularly intense session with a student, I heard a soft knock at my door. I opened it to find a small group of teachers standing there, looking a bit sheepish. They wanted to talk. Not about taking over my office again, thank goodness, but about making sure we could communicate better as a team. It was a conversation I never thought would happen, if I'm being honest. We all sat down, and it turned into this impromptu brainstorming session. We talked about respecting each other's spaces and how we could be more considerate of everyone's needs. It was refreshing, and it felt like we were finally moving forward. And then, just when I thought we'd covered everything, one of the teachers brought up something I hadn't even considered, how much they'd appreciated having a quiet place to just sit for a minute. It made me realize that maybe there was a bigger issue at play, that maybe our school needed more spaces where people could just take a breather. In the weeks that followed, the school actually looked into creating more small areas where staff could unwind without invading anyone else's space. It was weirdly inspiring to see how one locked door had sparked this whole reevaluation of our school environment. I couldn't help but feel a bit proud. Not about the door itself, but about how we'd turned a point of contention into a chance for real change. It was like the school was finally recognizing the importance of personal space for everyone. So now, when I walk into my office, it feels like mine again. And not just mine, but a place that's truly respected. The candy bowl stays full, My pens are all present and accounted for, and the only people using my space are the ones who are supposed to be there. But, every now and then I catch myself wondering, did I really need to go through all that to get here? Was there another way to make them understand without creating so much drama? Or was locking my door the only way to make them see it mattered? A couple of weeks later, things seemed to have settled into a new rhythm. The staff had the new lounge space, and I had my office back. It was a relief to walk in every morning and not have to worry about cleaning up someone else's mess or feeling like my personal space was being invaded. I was finally able to focus on my work and the students who needed my attention. Then, one morning, as I was preparing for the day, the principal stopped by my office. She wanted to let me know that she appreciated how I handled the whole situation. It wasn't easy, but you stuck to what you believed was right, she said, and I could tell she meant it. It felt good to hear that kind of acknowledgement, especially after all the tension. Despite everything, I couldn't shake the feeling that there might have been a less dramatic way to handle it all. Maybe if I'd approached things differently, it wouldn't have escalated the way it did. But then again, maybe it needed to happen this way for a real change to take place. The assistant principal even started organizing regular meetings for staff to discuss ways we could support each other better, both professionally and personally. It felt like a positive step forward, a chance to build a more supportive environment. As I sat in one of those meetings, listening to everyone share their thoughts and ideas, I realized that maybe this whole ordeal had been worth it. It wasn't just about my office anymore. It was about creating a culture where everyone felt their space was respected. Still, I sometimes wonder if it could have been avoided. Did I need to lock my door to make them see the importance of boundaries? Or was there another way?